For your brain to actually process learning, you need to struggle. That is in opposition to what every big tech company is saying that they want you to have. That requires time to actually contemplate and think. And a lot of AI systems at the moment are built for speed and productivity and not for better output.
We acknowledge the Gayamagal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. The best career advice won't come from an AI prompt. It comes from the people who've lived it. Welcome to Tech Careers Hotline, brought to you by the Tech Council of Australia. I'm your host, Adair Robbins, and this is a podcast for anybody who's curious about a career in tech. We put real questions from real people to the leaders and builders of tomorrow. Let's begin. My guest today is Kara Bombell, co-founder of EthicAi. Kara started out as a documentary filmmaker, then spent 15 years inside big organisations and ad agencies, eventually rising to be COO. Now she works with businesses helping them to get AI right. Her philosophy comes down to one line: people shouldn't be in the loop, they should be at the helm. She's the co-host of the podcast The Babes and has a huge following for her take on all things AI. Please welcome Kara. Hello, Kara.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're coming on the podcast because you have such an interesting career and I'd love to go into all the details.
Well, I love that you think so. That means a lot coming from you.
Let's start at the beginning. What were you like as a kid?
If I asked my parents, I was pretty precocious, I think. I always was very much interested inside like science and tech. My passion throughout my life has always been kind of astronomy, astrophysics. From a really young age, I was always kind of thinking about, I think, deeply technical things, but was really kind of adventurous, wanted to explore the world. My parents, with 4 kids, traveled around the world all the time. I don't know how they did that. So we were always kind of moving with new cultures and stuff like that. So as a kid, I would say very happy, but also very technically skewed. So definitely something that I knew I was passionate about and wanted to go down the pathway of.
Did you have any mentors in that when you were young? People who got you interested in those subjects?
No, I don't feel like I did. But I was very informed by documentaries, which is actually why I went and became a documentary filmmaker. That was actually my first career out of uni, was becoming a documentary filmmaker. And I was always really deeply interested to the point of obsession with science or, I said astrophysics or criminology, or like just had these like phases of my life where it was just such deep focus and consumption of information. There is something a bit neurospicy happening, but it's definitely one of those things from my perspective, is that like kind of deep curiosity to learn, which then gave me this opportunity to really change my career multiple times over my life. Primarily because once I get really fixated on something, I am never one to let the bone go. Like I keep at it.
So the breadcrumbs were there for being a co-founder of a business focused on AI and having that deep focus.
My parents were both business owners. So like I saw that exemplified to me about what industrious and sort of the personality type of a business owner or entrepreneur. So I could see the level of dedication that was needed and required for success. I think that every few days my dad's like, I don't know how you're my daughter. I don't know. How did you get so into AI? How did you get so into these technical things? Once I kind of start to scratch the surface, I'm really interested in what sits underneath.
Yep.
And then it becomes not just work, but a passion. And so I would easily say that a lot of my time, like my social time, my time that I'm spending with kids, I'm talking about it. So because I'm just really deeply interested in it. And also the political and social ramifications of it, which is kind of multi-angular.
In your career, you spent 15 years working in large organizations in ad agencies, and you were focusing on streamlining things, making things run faster. And now as you're working with businesses, you're actually trying to slow them down and get them to think really deeply about these big ideas. So how do you kind of reconcile those two paces that you have?
It's a really interesting question. Because the perception that doing things ethically would slow something down is actually quite an interesting misconception. Because ultimately, how I think organizations worked pre-AI was linear. Like, so you were able to make things more streamlined, but the impact of AI being brought into an organization is an exponential curve. So getting it right means there's so much more time saved. What this means in terms of your workforce being engaged as part of the onboarding process, what it means to salvage brand reputation.
Yep.
Like, all these things are so important. And so having a level of consideration, critical thinking and judgment before an AI tool gets rolled out, I think to me feels like a really natural space to sit inside operations, because it's how do we get to the best outcome, the best product as quickly as we can. And for me, with the introduction of AI being brought into a lot of organizations, that needs to have some upfront thinking. It's not just throw it at a wall and see if it sticks. We've seen so many organizations being, impacted by their speed. Move quick, break things kind of mentality. But as we've seen, even in Silicon Valley, even like when companies overseas have implemented AI at scale without reflection on what this was going to mean for the social architecture or the brand reputation.
Employee morale.
It absolutely damaging if you don't roll it out properly. So I actually think you get to the result quicker by having these considerations up front. But I think that there is ways to do that so that people can be learning in parallel.
How do you see when a company is doing it really well?
When we're engaged, we are usually the people to support organizations in embedding it successfully. One of the first things is having the understanding and knowledge of where you are at in your journey is actually a really important thing. And that can't just be something that's held by the C-suite inside an organization. You really need to have a level of understanding of where your workforce is, because oftentimes the C-suite will be like, okay, we'll roll this out. We can do this and we can push it down, on the assumption that people will just accept and move with it. But as we see inside the data, there's a massive pushback against AI being implemented. And so how we get people to understand how it's being embedded, why it's being embedded, what they gain from it being embedded. Ultimately, we're always working with kind of like ethically based businesses. So they do prioritize that, which is obviously an important factor. And the ones that we see where it's not successful is where it's typically run from the IT department in isolation, and then it rolls out as a new application that sits on someone's desktop. And maybe they do an hour of Copilot training or something like that. Like, that's typically where I see it going wrong. Where it goes right is when staff are engaged with what the design solution is going to be. So not only is what can it potentially do, but then also looking at their roles and seeing what this now opens up. Ultimately, a lot of people want to be able to challenge themselves and learn about what's coming next in their career. And this is a real opportunity to do that, which is why we sort of see a lot of the more successful implementations are done by the people and culture team, because it is more embedded inside how people see themselves in their career and how we support them through that.
Talk to us about that experience of leaving a big organization and going out on your own and building a company.
Yeah, like, look, it was really time. It was time. The nervousness that I felt about going out on my own was there. And then as soon as I jumped into it, it became very tolerable very quickly. I think a lot of people are really fearful of what they don't know. And having then left a large organization, thousands of people, moving into one of a sole consultant and, going through that stage. But then what really changed for me was when I got my business partner. And so then having someone to bounce off and create community with. In the beginning days, we were just like, okay, let's consult and we'll like help each other through that consulting process, her and P&C, me in operations and tech. And then the more we worked, we were like, this could be something. It's actually the hybridization of people and culture, organizational design and tech that is what sets us apart. And so the feeling or the gut feeling that people have about, I don't know what's going to happen if I leave an organization. Like, I get that there's a visceral reaction to a lot of people in that situation, but then it becomes your new reality and you realize that what stresses you out is a very different type of beast. It's like, okay, well, I'm no longer just making sure I'm doing these long hours inside a corporate role.
Yeah.
And not feeling a level of fulfillment or attachment to what I'm doing. Okay, now I've got this aspect that I'm the salesperson for what I'm doing. I don't have that larger network to be able to lean into, but you learn. And when it's something that you really care about and you're really passionate about, the days fly. The days absolutely fly, which is awesome. And then you can bring more people on board that align to the vision and mission, and you're just so unencumbered by bureaucracy. which is such an exciting place to be, I think, especially in this world when AI is coming in to roost.
Yeah, you get to make the rules.
Yeah, you get to make the rules, but then just accelerate so quickly.
Okay. This podcast is Tech Careers Hotline. We've got a question from our listener. So the question is, should schools be teaching us how to use AI or teaching us the stuff AI can't do?
I love this question because I don't want to do a cop-out, but it is both. But ultimately, you should be focusing on one thing because when you're talking about the tools of AI, they will change. So the more you kind of get embedded or sort of fixated on a certain tool, like it's just not worth your time to become a fan person of a specific tool because they come and they go. And right now, Anthropic is amazing. And but last year, OpenAI was amazing. And then also the underlying hardware will change as to what people are engaging with. So on the opposite side, you're talking about what other things that AI can't do. And I think that there's a lot of things that we think AI can't do that maybe in some time they might be able to do. So we also have to be flexible in that way.
It's still early days.
It's still early days. And what that intelligence looks like or what it can be, because so for example, 3 years ago, the largest sort of thing is everyone has to go into physical trades or something like that.
Yeah.
Robots can't do that. I'm like, well, they will get there at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I think that we actually need to do is really embed with kids resilience to change, how to learn, and how do you actually deal with that level of change gracefully, understanding, and then identifying opportunities to pivot and grow and change how you work structurally as well. I think that the days of learning a craft and then being embedded in that craft for, 30, 40 years, that's done. That's been done for a while. We're looking at cycles on the 2 to 5 year kind of, because the tools will change in that period of time. So I think as a student, really learning how your brain works, the levels of metacognition so that you can really interrogate your thinking.
Yeah.
These are persistent skills. Understanding how you can be more empathetic or understanding other people's perspectives, learning the craft of hope and vision setting. So it's a different skill set. And I think a lot of times people have called these soft skills, but they are literally so much more important now.
Yeah, they're hard skills.
They're hard skills and the reason why I think that they were devalued because oftentimes they're thought of as feminine skills, which is, in and of itself part of the problem. But now going through this change in how society is working, I think that this is something we really need to focus more.
So learning how to learn and focusing on those so-called soft skills.
Yeah.
And the point about learning how to learn, I think this is such a great question from the listener because AI is also disrupting how kids learn. And we probably feel that as adults too. I know there's a harder cognitive load if you're trying to edit something that has been written by AI or you haven't written than if you've written it yourself.
Yeah.
And
the neural pathways that are developed through strain aren't developed. So that's the thing, is part of it, and this is why it comes down to learning how to learn. For your brain to actually process learning, you need to struggle.
Yeah.
And that is in opposition to what every big tech company is saying that they want you to have, is the level of struggle or resilience to deal with something that's outside a comfort zone, because that's where you're sitting on the edge. And why I think that's an important part of learning how to learn is that as we go through that, it is deeply uncomfortable for a lot of people who have had a level of consistency inside their career. And now it's no, you have to be sitting in this space that feels uncomfortable. But then also job and organizational design has to change to accommodate that. Because what used to happen when you were doing things manually, you'd go in, okay, I do some hard stuff and I do some easy stuff. Do some, okay, give myself a bit of a break. I do some hard stuff again. And you'd kind of oscillate during the day. If AI is taking the massive chunk of grunt work out, which is what the promise is, then are we just working our brains at max capacity for 12 hours a day? Because it just is impossible. And this is where we have all these problems where people are titling it human in the loop. What we say at EthicAi is human at the helm. We need to have more people. We need to have more people. Rather than being in the loop, it feels like you're kind of
cog in the wheel.
Yeah, cog in the wheel. Whereas at the helm, you own and you have understanding and you can coordinate what's happening. But that requires a level of not only capacity or what you've learned, but time to actually contemplate and think And a lot of AI systems at the moment are built for speed and productivity and not for better output, which is where we focus a lot.
Yeah, amazing. So actually carving out time in your day for deep thinking for nothing,
leaning
into that voice.
Yeah, leaning into that, but also like if you're part of a process that has automated elements to it, understand when you start to feel fry.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? AI fry is, I think, a really real thing that a lot of people are talking about.
Yes.
It's just your ability to actually think through things seriously. And so your ability to actually process the information needs time, it needs breath.
Yeah.
And so this is why I'm sort of like, when you carve out AI implementation, ensure that you have then set aside time for what it needs to be a quality output.
Digesting, understanding, quality reflecting. Output. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
AI in hiring that happens day to day. It's like, okay, are we introducing biases? And then you have to have the level of self-reflection of going, okay, this is what the system's showing me. What are the patterns here? Can we start identifying where the system may be veering off course? If you trust a system with all abandon, you're just preparing yourself for a massive issue down the track.
On this topic of women and AI, you've talked about the confidence gap. Women kind of rate themselves lower, that they've been using AI less than men. Actually, today I just read that it's almost on par now. Made a huge correction. But I think it's really interesting. Like in the past, do we think we've seen that delay because it was a confidence gap, or it was women kind of thinking through the ramifications?
I saw that report. It came out a few weeks ago regarding it's actually now accelerating at a rate where they will take over men in terms of uptake. And so what I actually think that's down to is, one, a cultural gap, that oftentimes women are more reflective and have more ethical boundaries than men do. And so my question was always, why are we creating systems that exclude a massive portion of the population because they don't feel ethically aligned to what's happening inside an organization? How do we actually support women? I don't think it was a confidence thing. I think it was an ethical barrier, personally. I think there's a confidence gap sometimes inside the technology, but I think that the systems perpetuate those issues. I very ardently speak against imposter syndrome because is it true or not? Maybe, yes, but does it help us?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't actually drive us forward. It makes people feel like that there's a reason why they feel left behind. And let's figure out how systemically we change the system to incorporate more women as part of that process. And I can talk from personal experience. I've felt imposter syndrome many times in my life, but from my angle, I just don't want it to feel like I've lost a level of control for my implementation. So does it help me? I don't know. It's a bit of a kind of, it's a slippery slide sometimes, because I'm like, I totally understand. And I think let's fix the systems.
Yes.
There's a really interesting book by Michelle P. King. I'm not sure if you've read it.
No.
Read it, called The Fix.
No.
You should.
Yeah,
it's really
great.
It's right up your alley. She's a New Zealand tech writer. And, it's all about the systems that are in play that put women at a disadvantage in tech careers.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I totally agree. And that's why I think the TEDI standards developed by Emma Jones is such a great set of standards, because it's all about fixing the institution, not trying to fix women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that's 100% the thing. And I always feel a bit like walking on eggshells, because I said, I do understand that women do feel that they are being left behind.
Well, two things can be true.
Exactly.
At once, right?
And so, but what I'm saying is, if you do feel like that, reflect on the systems that made you feel like that, and then go about changing the system and getting male allies to change that system as well. I've had amazing male allies throughout my career as well. And so I really love to lean into opportunities with both women and men, but oftentimes it's men in C-suite positions that you're like, you need to make sure that this changes. It shouldn't be my job to always be the one changing the outcome. Yeah, you have a responsibility for this. And if I have that open and honest relationship with somebody, they'll hear about it.
All right. So we got another question from a listener. What would you say to a woman in her mid-career who isn't afraid of AI? She's just exhausted, and the idea of having to reinvent herself again feels like one more thing the system is asking of her.
Yeah. Well, don't I feel it? I feel that in my bones. Yes, I totally can comprehend and sense that feeling. But I feel that it's not as hard as I think a lot of people try to make it feel. When you start to see the incentives behind the reasons why they make it so hard, or they throw acronyms at every angle and it's all like tech, it feels garbled.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this feels so hard. There is a commercial reason why they do that. It's so that you buy stuff to make it feel easier. Whereas ultimately, if you've got a good head on your shoulders and you're able to kind of work through what needs to be done, the systems actually can help you take away some of that apprehension. Now, I remember I was working with AI chatbots and stuff in 2016. And so we were probably quite ahead of the curve, and that was just purely tech implementation for organizations. But when ChatGPT came to the fore, the first thing I did, and on reflection, I'm like, it's interesting that was the one I did, but it really kind of bridged the gap, was I was so exhausted because at the end of the day, my kids love doing creative stories. So they tell me I've got to add these, each of them have 5 things that they want to add in the story.
Yep.
So I've got 10 things in total that I've got to remember.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I remember all these things? And so I actually just got AI to say what are these things? And then I'd get the story and I'd read them the story.
It's genius.
So it was actually just okay, how is this thing making my life a little bit easier?
Yep.
And as I said, it's an interesting use case because it is something that I love reading to my kids. I'm just, at the end of the day, I've got zero
brain dead.
energy. Completely brain dead. I'm like, well, I either don't do it or I've got something that can help me do it, but I'm still reading to my kids.
Yep.
I'm still got that sort of capacity. And they get the customized story with all the rainbow donuts and all the different things they want to add. And it literally was a bit of just the gateway to understand what could be done, because I was like, okay, so this can be used in this way. And then I started using it more in terms of research, and then kind of started using it more the more you kind of just use it in things that you think will be helpful, identify the areas. And this is what we do with organizations as well. As an individual, what are the things that take energy out of you? What are the things that makes life so much harder for you? Those are the areas that you focus on. Because you've got nothing to lose by trying to make those things more efficient.
Yeah.
And so you just find those things, the use cases that things that don't bring you joy.
We've all got those things in our life, don't we?
Exactly. And this is the thing that I find.
Things we dread.
Yeah, things that we dread. And I think it's I find it so interesting when people are like, AI's taking away, work and all that type of stuff. I feel like that is not the skill.
That's not our highest level.
This isn't our highest level of what's the word? The Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly.
It's not self-fulfilling to be okay, I'm doing a whole heap of Excel spreadsheets. Find the things that you find that draining energy and identify those and work on those. Yeah. And typically, once you get 1 or 2 off the things, you start to see the value.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Let's finish with some career advice. So, Cara, what is the worst career advice you've ever been given?
What's the worst advice I was ever given?
Or what's the best?
I absolutely think, and this is so corny, but be yourself. Just live your authentic self. There's so many times where I'd rock up inside corporate in a blazer or something and just be like, this is not me. This is just not my vibe. And, or feeling like I'm really constrained.
Yeah.
And I think that level of energy and passion when you are being your authentic self becomes something that's quite infectious.
Yeah.
And it leads to more success. And so as I have gone through even this journey and just being like, hey, me and my business partner, we're very different people. She likes the corporate kind of things, and we've gone to many government sort of, institutions and stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh, those are some, bold earrings, or, talking about my nails or something. And I'm just like, it's
just earrings.
It's just my vibe. But ultimately, I feel the more that you're able to speak what you feel means that you're able to get more out of the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
So if in the instance, particularly around ethical concerns, I've had clients that be like, people don't care about that. And I'm like, I'm telling you, a lot of them do, because you can see, even looking at what's happening in the States at the moment with the Gen Z neo-Luddite movement. So all these people are pushing back against the technology. These are your workers. They don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah.
There's a whole heap of people that are really
society.
They're part of society.
Walking out of speeches.
These are university educated students, and that also comes across to Australian and European, and it is a global kind of movement that's happening at the moment. So if you think that this is a niche kind of use case, or that there's a power imbalance that means that you can just roll something through, it's not sustainable long term, and you will damage your reputation and brand. Not only your brand reputation, but your personal reputation. Because if you're the leader, and look at what's happened with multiple leaders that have rolled out things that have felt maybe too heavy-handed or spruiking the coming of Jesus with AI, people have just disengaged from it.
Yeah.
Like they're just
it doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real. And I think that people are just really over that mentality.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, Cara, 10 years in the future, what do you think you'll be doing or thinking about or grappling with?
I think EthicAi will become ethic. Ethic something, because there will be ethical robots. So I think for me personally, to be continuing to engage with technology with an ethical oversight, ensuring that humans are put front and center of that change, there's always going to be a whole heap to do inside that space. What the new technology is may change, which is why it's really important to learn how to change and learn how to learn. So I have no doubt that will change, but ultimately still hope to be waving the flag for human first implementation, no matter the technology.
Well, thank you so much, Cara. I've loved this conversation. I've got so much out of it, and I know our listeners will too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Tech Careers Hotline today. And if you did, please help us out by subscribing, leaving us a review, or even share it with someone who you think might find value from it today. Until next time.